to play those games or not, and ultimately they decided not to play those games. And Kevin Mawai was telling me yesterday that it was Phil Hansen, the Bills' defensive end back then. You know, every team had a representative on that conference call, who, amid the players weighing in, should we play, should we not, Phil Hansen interrupted essentially and said, the only two guys I want to hear from are Mawai and Strahan. Two future Hall of Famers in every sense of the word, by the way. And Michael Strahan and Kevin Mawai separately and with their own emotion and their own thoughts convinced every single one of those NFLPA brethren on that call that they couldn't play, that they, even though they didn't know what had happened in Lower Manhattan, right here in Lower Manhattan, they understood from their teammates, essentially, Mawai and Strahan, that the games could not go on, at least not for another week. And when they did come back a week later, and in that profile of Michael Strahan, I believe you saw the picture, it was of the Giants after they went to Kansas City and won that game. And Jim Fossil, the head coach, who doesn't get enough credit for the human being he was. Sadly, we lost Jim in June unexpectedly at age 71. But it was Jim Fossil who said to his players after that win over the Chiefs, get back in this locker room. We need to take a picture. And they took one of the best pictures and certainly one of the most iconic pictures in New York Giants history, Colleen.
And that's certainly an event that would undoubtedly and absolutely did bring so many people together. And we saw that, you know, in locker rooms. We saw that in neighborhoods. We saw that at our workplaces, in schools, everywhere. And it is such a powerful thing to think back on how terrible that day was and then how resilient the people of this country were afterwards. And I know that the Giants and the Jets, they did not play that week, but they did help out in other ways, especially at Ground Zero, right?
Absolutely. I remember the New York Giants on that weekend going to the harbor in New Jersey and loading supplies onto boats that would eventually take them, of course, over to Manhattan. And the players took that very seriously. In fact, I remember that day asking Michael Strahan to talk to the media. I believe it was Tara Sullivan, then of the Bergen Record, and me. We asked Michael, can you talk to us? Michael wouldn't talk to us. He did not think that they should get any attention for what they were doing. So it was Jesse Armstead who understood that we had the best interest of everyone at heart. We thought that it could help raise people up, to know that people, including the New York Giants, cared. And Jesse did talk to us that day. But I certainly, looking back, very much respect and understand where Strahan was coming from. He didn't want the attention on him or the Giants. He knew that attention had to be on those who had lost so very much.
Mm-hmm. And we're coming up on the second of 6 moments of silence this morning. 9:03 a.m. was the moment the second plane struck the World Trade Center, the South Tower. It was also the moment it became very clear that plane crash, the first one, was no accident, that we were under attack. Let's watch right now in Lower Manhattan.
David W. Bernard.
May God bless our fallen brothers and sisters, their families, their friends, and their loved ones.
So again, 20 years ago at this exact moment, it became clear the nation was not witnessing a tragic mistake, but an intentional, targeted attack on innocent people. And the observances, they will continue all morning in Lower Manhattan and also at the Pentagon and in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and we'll be taking each location live. Now, you are, of course, watching Good Morning Football Weekend. I am Colleen Wolfe. That is Kim Jones. Kim Jones will be with us all morning long, sharing her perspective, her stories, and really her emotions on this day that is very emotional. It's a dark one in our history, and it's one that really did help galvanize people as well. And so here we are on this day 20 years later, and I'll bring in the rest of our crew here, Mike Garofolo, Michael Robinson, D'Angelo Hall. This is our first show of the season on the 20th anniversary, and we will talk football today, but we will also pause and remember everything that happened on September 11th, 2001. Mike, you've been in the New York area for years now, and I'm sure that it still is very impactful 20 years later.
It is, and you will see that from the Giants players and coaches and staff members tomorrow at MetLife Stadium. They'll be wearing the hats, and it's just the juxtaposition of what we're doing this morning reminds me of the role that sports played in the weeks and months following 9/11 and the way that sports helped heal, whether it was Mike Piazza's home run or those hats that the Giants players and coaches and Jets players and coaches were wearing. And just the emotion that you saw on the field and in the stands following the pause of days and in the NFL's case weeks between games. There was no doubt that sports played a part in helping to heal this country, and that continues today. And you will see it this weekend as the NFL, along with other sports across the country, take time to remember the fallen, remember the heroes of that day as well. You will see that from the NFL this weekend as it continues. The healing continues 20 years later. It does.
Yeah, Jeezy, I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. I can even remember myself as a 17-year-old, being on campus at Virginia Tech and watching what happened and trying to understand that. And, what people don't know, that next week we had to fly up to New Jersey for a football game. And, I mean, you could only imagine a bunch of terrified children, young men about to board a plane or thinking about boarding a plane after everything this country has been through. But all of our hearts, all of our prayers, had went out to all of those people involved, the first responders. I mean, just understanding all the things that happened in totality 20 years later. I mean, this country is stronger than anybody ever could have imagined. And, sometimes you have to be pushed to the brink to really turn to your friends and turn to people that you love. And so, I mean, just extremely honored. Like I said, I had no idea 20 years ago that I'd be a part of the National Football League. So as a college student, watching that, it was just unimaginable, guys, unimaginable. I mean, words can't even describe it.
D-Hall, you're absolutely right, brother. I was at Penn State. I was a freshman at the time. Yeah, I was a freshman at the time, man. And, just seeing everybody around the TVs and me not quite understanding exactly what was going on. I remember we had a team meeting and Coach Paterno came in and he was very somber. He was sad. He knew a lot of people affected by the tragedy. And that's when it kind of hit me and it dawned on me. They canceled our football games that week. We were playing at the University of Virginia in Virginia. And just seeing how Coach Paterno, how it just moved him, how it affected him. That's when we kind of knew as a team that this was a bigger deal. And our country came together afterwards, and it showed that we can overcome our differences and come together when we truly want to.
And I think that's something that's really important to remember, especially now when there are so many things that divide us, but remembering then when we were able to overcome so much and come together, and it was a horrific event that took that to happen, but it can happen and it is possible. And today we will remember those horrific events that happened on that day, the lives that were lost, all of the people that helped out. It is a heavy day, and we will be covering it all morning long. We'll be watching the events in New York City, as well as the Pentagon and Shanksville, Pennsylvania, 20 years after the day that changed the world. We'll be right back.
At Tommy John, we